Ladies and gentlemen, from the Universal Church of Freedom, Peace and Justice, Deacon Gerald Celente.
Hello, this is Deacon Celente of the Universal Church of Freedom, Peace and Justice. I'm so concerned about what's going on in the world. It is unbelievable. From the COVID war that ruined hundreds of millions of lives and livelihoods with their political science that lacked any kind of real science, that locked down society and forced us to get vaccinations or no freedom. And as we've noted, this is the first gene therapy inoculation injected into the human being. And it is our mission and part of the mission of the Universal Church of Freedom, Peace, and Justice is for people to be free to choose who they are, what they want to be, and nobody on earth can tell them what to put into their body, whether it's eating junk food or taking a Operation Warp Speed jab. Do what you want, do what you wish, but don't tell me or the believers in freedom, peace, and justice that they have to do what you, a politician, tells them to do. This is not life on earth. This is living under dictatorships. The lives that have been destroyed and the livelihoods are uncountable and incalculable from the lockdowns. Streets are dead. Businesses are doing partial business of what they used to do. People aren't going back to the offices like they used to. The office occupancy rates are about 40% in the United States. All the retail businesses that used to rely on commuters, gone forever. Because now in the new world, the metaverse world, people will be working from home. The damage that's been done, again, is incalculable. We're going to very difficult times. And now the war. So from the COVID war to the Ukraine war to World War III, World War III has begun. It's not as though World War I began when they assassinated the Archduke Ferdinand in Sarajevo. It was building up to that. World War II didn't begin for America when they bombed Pearl Harbor. It led up to that. On and on and on. And now they're leading us into World War III. NATO says it's ready to back Ukraine against Russia for years. NATO says. Who's NATO? Who is NATO? Oh, you mean a bunch of politicians and bureaucrats that decide what they're going to do and that all of us must obey their demonic wish to keep wars and killings going? They're saying this out loud. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said Thursday that Western military alliances are ready to back Ukraine in its war against Russia for years to come. Quote, "We need to be prepared for the long term. There's absolutely the possibility that this war will drag on for months and years." He said that NATO's plan is to supply long-term support, including training Ukrainians to use Western military equipment. NATO allies, quote, "are preparing to provide support over a long period of time." And the Biden administration yesterday, on Thursday, announced $33 billion, including $20.4 billion in military aid, added on to the tens of billions that have already gone into military aid into Ukraine. This is not military aid. These are murderous weapons. The United States and NATO, by giving weapons to the Ukrainians to fight the Russians, are in fact fighting the Russians. If you give a murderer weapons to murder people, the supplier of the murderous weapons is as guilty as the murderer. We at the Universal Church of Freedom, Peace, and Justice are totally opposed to Russia's invasion and what they're doing. We also understand what triggered it. But what triggered it, that doesn't make the news. The Ukrainians slaughtering people in the Donbass region, over 15,000 of them, that doesn't make the news. The unwillingness to come to a peace agreement doesn't make the news. America's Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, has a long, murderous track record of war. He was a strong proponent of the Iraq War. He was a strong proponent of the Libyan War. He is a strong supporter of Israel and denounces Palestinians. The Syrian war, the Libyan war, his push as the Undersecretary of State under Barack Obama for the Yemen war. Antony Blinken, an arrogant daddy's boy, born into the privileged class, has never worked a day in his life. He's been on the government payrolls, most of it, promoting war. His statements are there for anyone to read. He's a war hawk. And he's sending America to war. He has not met and has refused to meet, according to reports, with Russia's equivalent of the Secretary of State, Lavrov, since February 15th. The war began on February 24th. Russia vows lightning response to NATO. If someone decides to intervene into the ongoing events from the outside and create unacceptable strategic threats for us, they should know that our response to those oncoming blows will be swift, lightning fast. Russian President Vladimir Putin said on Thursday. We will use all the tools for this, ones that no one could brag about, and we won't brag. We will use them if needed, and I want everyone to know this. Also on Wednesday, as I said Thursday, it was actually Wednesday, fires at armed depots inside Russian territories were reported. The same day, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said, quote, Ukrainians should take action that go beyond their borders, clearly referring to these attacks. This man has a track record of his words of murder, 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 murder. Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, Syria, Yemen, and now Ukraine. And he is the undersecretary in the United States, excuse me, the Secretary of State in the United States. He was the undersecretary with the Yemen war and has been in the government with all those other wars. To add to the threat of war in the future and how it's going to destroy life on earth and the mental illness of the people in control, on Wednesday, Seth Cropsey, a former Deputy Undersecretary of the Navy, published an op-ed piece in the Wall Street Journal. Quote, "The U.S. should show it could win a nuclear war." Do I have to say anything more about how mentally ill these people are? There are no winners to a nuclear war. This undersecretary has been involved in wars that America has lost, like getting up to bat, and every time you do, you strike out, and saying now you can hit a home run after nothing but a strikeout record, saying that America could win a nuclear war. When they asked Albert Einstein, the man who was very responsible for the atomic bomb, what weapons will be used to fight the Third World War, he said, "I don't know, but the fourth will be sticks and stones." He said the ability to win is key by arming surface ships with tactical nuclear weapons, as well as attacking a nuclear missile sub, and thus reducing Russia's second strike ability. The U.S. undermines Russia's ability to fight a nuclear war. Jeopardizing Russia's second strike capability would tangibly rise the military stakes. Mr. Putin could no longer unleash his nuclear arsenal with impunity. Instead, he would need to reckon with the possibility that NATO could decapitate the Kremlin. Decapitate the Kremlin. We have mentally ill, demonic people that are destroying life on earth in front of us. They made up on the COVID war to lock down entire countries. Children going through mental illnesses, suicide rates skyrocketing, crime, violence, poverty, corruption. And now this war, the war that will end life on earth. Yep. During the Obama administration, Blinken turned out to be even more neoconservative on foreign policy than the heads of the administration. Most notably, he was one of the loudest advocates for the U.S. overthrow of Libyan President Muammar Gaddafi. Blinken has also been an unapologetic supporter of Israel and its decade-long oppression of Palestinian people, saying that, quote, he would not tie military assistance to Israel to any political decisions that it makes. Period. Full stop. Period. Full stop. I, Anthony Blinken, an arrogant little daddy's boy, born on third base. I went to Harvard. I've been a member of the club. Period. Full stop. You will not decide what America will do. Only I will. Slaughter the Palestinians, steal their land. That is fine. But Russia, now that's a different story. Yep. He goes, they go on and on about this guy's track record of murderous wars. Israel attacks Syrian capital, killing 9. That was on Wednesday. Didn't make any of the news. Israel could bombs away everywhere. We are a non-denominational religion. We believe in God, a higher God and a higher order. And everybody that believes in their God should stand up and fight for peace. Because if we don't, we will die on hell on earth if we do not crush these demonic people that love war and killing so much, as does Antony Blinken, as does Joe Biden, as does Barack Obama, as does Boris Johnson, as does Tony Blair, as does Sarkozy, as does Hollande. One after another. A cabal of murderous war criminals that, with their actions, have killed tens of millions of people across the planet. NATO has a track record of murder since the end of World War II. What they did to Yugoslavia, what they did in Afghanistan and Iraq and Libya. Track records of mass murder, destroying countries that were no threat to any of them. And now they're saying that Ukraine's war with Russia is a threat to we the people around the world. Billions and billions and billions of dollars, countless billions, going to the war that could end it if they negotiated for peace. But as the data shows, the U.S. Secretary of State refuses to negotiate for peace. As the data shows, Ukraine's president, Zelensky, who, before he became president for Ukraine, was a comedian that played in his TV show the president of Ukraine, refused to abide by the Minsk Agreement and the Minsk II Agreement about the separatist region in Ukraine, the Donbass region. Refused. Russia has 140 million people. Ukraine, 40 million. Who's going to win the war? It's not who you want to win the war. It's none of our concern. This is between these two countries. Every time that these politicians keep talking about bringing freedom, democracy to other countries is nothing more than war talk, as they have robbed we the people of freedom and democracy with their COVID war, forcing us to get inoculations, closing down our businesses, deciding only the rich ones and the big ones could stay open, masking up little children, inoculating them. The latest data in the United States shows that between January 2020 and February 2022, 1,500 children are said to have died from COVID. Out of that 1,500, 61% were obese, thus suffering from pre-existing comorbidities. There are 72 million 1 to 17-year-olds in America. Thus, at the course of 2 years, 750 people per year died of the virus. 750 out of 72 to 74 million. That is no statistic at all. To force inoculations into these people, to force them to wear masks. The demons are running the world. They are destroying us. And now, if we don't stop them, as that assistant whatever Navy guy, we could win a nuclear war? There are no winners. Please do what you can to support us. If we don't unite for peace, we will die in war. So please go to the donate page. We must unite very quickly. United we stand, divided we will die. Thank you.